Yo, 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 man. Welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex. Today we are here with a very special guest. Today we got Mr. Dom. How you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing great, Alex. How you feeling, my man?
Man, hey, look, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I can't complain at all.
That's what I'm talking about, D, baby. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Too blessed to be stressed, and if stress shows up, turn that mess into energy for something productive.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So and it's good that you had that positive mindset. We're pretty much gonna get straight into it. So it's good that you had that positive mindset. Because a lot of people don't realize how important it is to have a positive mindset. I'm a big believer in you think positive thoughts, positive things will happen, positive outcomes will happen. But as soon as you start thinking negativity, that's when negative things and negative outcomes will happen. So um, we're gonna pretty much, like I said, we're gonna pretty much jump straight into it. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to become a self leadership expert?
Sure thing. I like the depending on the audience, it is usually just boils down to a quiet kid that found his confidence. Grew up, had some great, wonderful parents, had an older brother, and basically raised in the church. Was a church boy. My dad, he was a trustee in the church, very active. Mom was also active in the church, and basically Sunday, basically from I guess 8:30 to like sometimes 3:30. It basically be in church on Sundays, go to school, play with the neighborhood kids, be outside back when smartphones weren't a thing back then, actually get some sunshine and fresh air and get
Yeah,
dirty a little bit and just go to school and discovered that I actually had a gift for speaking right in the church after doing a few plays
okay,
where folks are like, man, who the heck is that? And it's like, oh yeah, wait, that's Dom. All right, cool.
yeah,
And that actually led to me picking up and adding more public speaking courses to my repertoire, joining Toastmasters International, where I basically got to learn to speak more professionally and at a higher level. And through applying what I've read too, because the thing is, another thing about self leadership is that we lead ourselves in the longest, from the cradle to the grave, lead ourselves in the longest. And of course, that dash of the year we were born to that year where it's curtain call time for this life anyway, we got to make sure we at least do the best we can with what
mhm,
we can with the time that we have. And that comes down to self leadership, and you lead yourself before you lead anyone else. And the quiet kid who found his confidence, that would have never happened if I didn't see that I wanted to reinvent myself after high school, after college, after deciding to join Toastmasters and use that as a launch pad to eventually become a multi-time author, a best-selling author, a podcast host, and really helping others to advance to their next level by tapping into their inner gift of themselves. Because be honest, if you're going to be leading other folks, you got to lead yourself first for a long time because folks got to believe you. And if you don't believe in you, folks aren't going to believe in you either.
yep. I definitely agree with that. It all starts within. It's like that saying that they say. I'm not gonna help anybody that don't want to help themselves. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
uh, it all starts with you, and like you said, if you don't believe in yourself first, how can you expect other people to believe in you? Um, so you mentioned that you're an author. That you inspired. I mean, that you wrote several books. So what really inspired you to write Going North and Stay the Course? Like, is there any like key lessons that you hope readers take away from them?
Oh yeah, lots of takeaways. That desire to become an author, I thought that was something I was going to do maybe late 30s or when I got into the 40s of my life. And funny enough, like Toastmasters International, that organization again, that helps folks to become better public speakers. We had a guest speaker at a meeting one time, and his name was Daniel Alley. And he was 2 years older than me at the time. So I was part of the group at the age of 23. He was 25. And he
Okay.
gave this wonderful speech on how to act like a leader. And the ACT was drilled down to three letters: audacious, contagious, and tenacious. And that the fact that that was actually almost 10 years ago, because that was March of 2014 when I heard that speech, and it still sticks with me to this day. just
Wow.
shows how powerful alliteration is and rhyming is and how that sticks with you for a long time, and how he left a positive impression on me because he was selling his books after at the end of the meeting after his speech. And I figured, okay, he's a fellow millennial. I'll go ahead and support him. And when I bought the book, he signed it and everything. I was going through the pages, and the things he was writing about were the same things I was reading about.
Mm,
And I was like, wow, if this guy who's a fellow millennial can put pen to paper and put this book together, can do just that, I can do it too. And one of the major things that helped me to really make that happen for myself is that I decided to do the activity where I wrote out my own obituary. Kind of like similar to that dash. It's like, hey, when it's curtain call time, what do I want to be in my obituary? One of the main things I wrote in there was I was going to be a best-selling author of multiple books, and it actually happened about a good year and a half later after writing that obituary out. Because the thing is, that obituary is a way to plan your life out, to live your life backwards in a way. You're basically putting a future truth out there. You were basically saying, hey, I've done this, I've done that. And when you actually do that, it tricks your brain in a way to realize, oh, wait a second, I said I was going to do this thing, and it says I am this thing. Well, let me act as if and literally take action to make it happen. And my first book, Going North, was published. And that is really a book that's a synthesized self-help package for the distracted mind, because it's under 100 pages, because we're in the attention management era of life where there are distractions galore and there's so many options out there to really get us off of our path that we let us.
mm,
And short books are really where it's at in terms of knowledge, because the thing is, folks ain't got time for 200 to 600 pages. You have
yeah.
to make sure you give it to them nice, quick, and easy. That way, folks can get it, and even create a series of books. And that's even a great route for folks who are looking to start a side business, is become a published author of multiple books. And that's one of the major things I hope folks take away from, is that, hey, you can do it too. Because when I first heard that speech and saw the example that was in front of me, like, hey, it's like, if he can do it, I can do it too. Like, if I can do it, you can do it too. Because, hey,
Mhm.
especially the younger folks out there, be like, oh yeah, it's like Gen Z now. It's like, oh yeah, the Gen Zs, they can freaking do it. Sure, the heck am I doing?
That's right. So you mentioned the writing your own obituary. So is that kind of more so like, you kind of you just tricking yourself into doing something that you know you can do by seeing yourself, by you seeing yourself as like, okay, this is how people are gonna see me, when my time is called. Um, so you look at it like, okay, well now I got to make sure I do that because it's set in stone. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the noggin, man. Because the thing is, with that, it's when you write things down, things will happen. And looking at my past goals years ago, they may have not happened in the timetable I wanted them to happen, but they eventually happened. Like multiple things. One of the major things I wanted to do was get a certain certification. And I was like, all right, I'll plan that, and I'll go ahead and make that trip to Florida, make it happen, meet some folks. And it eventually happened. I wrote it down I was going to get a certain guest on my podcast, a certain author, since I'm all about featuring fellow authors. And little did I know, a year later, after reading their book, they appeared right on the show. It's like certain goals that are written down. It's like you really have to tap into the power of really writing down your goals. It's like, yeah, you got different apps and different things you can do, but there's nothing like writing it down. It's like that whole hand to heart to brain, which is probably the two most powerful muscles in your body, is your heart, especially,
Yeah.
and especially your brain that connects to it. Like having the blood flow and everything, like flowing that thought to the pen and letting that pen touch the paper, and where you actually, all right, this is where this is really going to happen. And then you take steps to really make it manifest. So, yeah, it's really, really powerful. That's really what it's really all about. Is like, hey, this is something I really want to do. And it doesn't even have to be something you think you can do, it can be something that you feel like you won't be able to do yet. And you may surprise yourself like maybe a year or two later, because we can surprise ourselves. Don't
Mhm.
get yourself wrong, for whoever's listening. You may think there's something out there that you may be not capable of doing, but Like if you can really focus, depending on what the goal is, then shoot, go for it. Now, granted, if you're trying to get into the NBA at the age of 65, you maybe go, maybe an employee, just don't be on the
Yeah,
court.
yeah. Yeah, you might have to go for a referee or something like that. Nah, I definitely
Yeah.
understand. Man. I definitely understand. So you mentioned that you got your own podcast, the Going North podcast, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So like, what's been like the most rewarding part of interviewing authors from around the world?
The most rewarding part about interviewing authors all over the world is the fact that it there's just a commonality between a lot of folks who usually write books because some of them may have interesting ways of thinking, and sometimes when it's great to get it out of them, it's even more of a great conversational experience and a personal growth that comes with it. Like with yourself, Alex, you're bringing guests on your platform. Like I'm sure it's a great learning experience, not only for yourself, but also the guests and your listeners and your viewers, because hey, everybody gets to chime in on the conversation and see what applies to their life, see what they can do and get better. You get another guest, you get another rep in another set on your arsenal as the interviewing host on your show. Like it's really just been all about growth. I can even think one of the major moments from the podcast that still stick with me to this day is that I had a guest on a few years ago, Sam Leibowitz. He wrote this book called Everyday Awakening. And one of the major takeaways from the episode that he was on is that he basically shared one of the major things he helps his coaching clients to do to gain confidence is to challenge them to create their own victory journal where they write down all their wins for the day at the end of the day, and they do it for 90 days straight. And then you create that journal of proof when you look back throughout your old days. It's like, okay, woke up this morning, got to work on time, wrote 500 words towards a blog, recorded a podcast episode, maybe got a promotion, got a raise on the job, maybe started a business, finished the paperwork for an LLC, like was able to, like, just the list of all the things and just basically tracking those things down and see, like, hey, I actually accomplished a lot over these past 3 months. So just action tips like that and the growth that comes with it. Heck, even sometimes getting listener messages. Even one listener said, "Man, Dom, don't do an episode like that again, man. I almost crashed my car from you two fools talking."
Oh man, yeah, yeah. Those sometimes those listeners, man, they never know how to make your day, man. I'm telling you. Um, so as many interviews you done had, many people that you done had conversations with, and that you done met. What would you say are some of the common obstacles that you see people facing when it comes to overcoming their challenges and achieving their goals?
Yeah, one of the common obstacles is themselves. Like we can be our own worst enemies, hence self-leadership being my main area of expertise is helping folks to really put that mirror in front of themselves and to force themselves to get past those blocks that we all have. Because sometimes we may be thinking, oh man, why am I not having this progress? Sometimes it's because there's something going on inside where it's like, hey, maybe you need to bring it out. Like I've even had a buddy of mine who wanted to start a podcast show. He had a great idea for his podcast, and I basically asked, like, "Hey, so do you really want to do this, man?" Because I was even in the same boat as him. And what helped me to get out of it was that a buddy of mine introduced me to some folks in his network who were published authors. So I did the same for him, and he's still podcasting to this day,
Okay.
200 plus episodes in, all because, like, hey, sometimes you just need someone to have that belief in you, and sometimes that person who you told your dreams and goals to that is really about helping you out and really encouraging you and helping you to get to that next level. Because, like, there's like sometimes the fear of success can be worse than the fear of failure because fear of failure that's kind of a granted thing every now and then. It's like, oh man, I don't want to fail, but screw it, let me go ahead and do it. Fear of success, it's like, oh crap, I might get too big, I want to stay under the radar here. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
man, my folks might say I'm a sellout. It's like, well, I don't want to do that. Sometimes it's like you just gotta see that part of yourself and say, forget about it. Let me just go ahead and make this thing happen here. Because the thing is, you'll surprise yourself every day, every year. Seek to do something to surprise yourself, so that way you can come out at the end of it and be like, "Wow, I actually had more growth this year."
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, I always tell myself, set the most unrealistic goals that you can think of, and try to get there. Because if you don't quite make it to that, you still succeeded what you really wanted to do in the first place.
Hmm.
So, um, so, um, so real quick on as far as on the author side. So, is there any advice that you would give, like any aspiring authors, like that want to become, a best-selling author like yourself?
Yep, sure, plenty of things to do. We'll stick with three. The first one is ink it when you think it. So make sure you get your thoughts down on paper. Make sure, or not. It doesn't have to be on paper for this part, but hey, writing it down is always a bonus. I'm always old school when it comes to that, making sure you write things down. Also, have a working, living document on a Google Doc page or like a Microsoft Word page, and have that blocked, uh, backed up somewhere digitally, so that way you can always access it, like your notes app on your phone or something like that. So, because if you have a powerful thought and you have an idea of where you want to go with what you want to write, then ink it when you think it, because ideas will come in out of the blue, out of nowhere. Heck, even
I agree.
especially after a good workout. I'll still remember one of the chapters from Stay the Course happened because there was a day where I went to CrossFit, and it was a double session where we did kickboxing first, then the CrossFit. So it was like I came out of a baptismal pool while I was sweating so dang much.
Right.
But when I got in the car, I had all these wonderful ideas. It's like I sweat away some metaphorical writer's block bricks, and then just the idea gateway just opened. And I'm glad I had a notepad on me at the time and a pen in the car so I could write it down. It's like, yeah, I could have recorded it, but at the same with my voice. But I'm like, now let me just go ahead and write this down so that way it sticks with it, because I know myself. And sometimes when I record things on the phone, it stays there, sure, but then I forget about it. If I write it down, I'm most likely going to see it again later.
Right.
So, ink it when you think it. Next thing is, done is better than perfect. And that helped me with my first book getting it done across the finish line, is that I had a goal to get it done within a year. And when it came time around August, I was like, all right, I wanted this book to be 100 pages, but this ain't going to be 100 pages if I'm going to reach the deadline, because I needed an editor, I needed a book cover designer, I needed to print out the books, proofread the books, make sure they're actually legible and things like that, like making sure it's readable and digestible for folks. So I'm like, all right, let me just go ahead and go with what I have.
Mm.
And I was able to get across the finish line that way. And what I didn't touch on in the first book got polished up for Stay the Course. And that's the thing, is that you don't have to have the book completely perfect, because the thing is, done's better than perfect. And no matter how many times you reread a book, you're going to find a typo or an error, even after you read it three times. And I learned that the hard way. And the third tip would be to definitely outline your book, especially if it's a nonfiction book, because the thing is, if you have an outline, you basically have a point A to point B. You have a running list or basic skeleton of what you want your book to look like. And then once you have that outline out, you can go back to point one to ink it where you think it, where you take different stories, points, and things like that, and then match it to each point in your outline. And then you can go from there to make things go a lot quicker.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty interesting. Okay. So, in what you've been, in your self leadership journey, like in your experience, what are like some of the key benefits of book writing when it comes to personal growth and development?
Yep, one of the
Like, how,
key benefits is the people you inspire, man. Like, when I've set to write out a book, I was like, well, let me just do this thing. I didn't know it was going to inspire other folks. To my knowledge, to this day, at least six other folks decided to become published authors after reading my book, because they're like, wait, this thing doesn't have to be thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. Like this thing can be this freaking thing. It's like I have to really work freaking hard, chisel the stone, and go to the freaking mountain and come out in a gray beard like a Moses. Like I have to do all that. Like shit is freaking great, man. Like let me go ahead and see what I could do. And they were able to make it happen. And it's all because they saw that hey, this guy had a goal, he had a vision, he had a plan, he worked it out. He decided to write a book and he wrote it. And it's like, wow, it doesn't even have to be big. And like earlier in the convo, like it's attention management. Folks ain't got time for 200 pages.
Right.
At least they're not going to really make time for it, depending on who you talk to. And it's like, well,
Right.
let me go ahead and put this wonderful book out here and launch my business, launch my craft, launch this next phase of my life, this other piece of the puzzle of life, this whole mosaic that I'm creating. So just the gift of inspiring others, other folks saying, man, like, dude, like just seeing you in action, man, that just gave me the permission to do what I'm doing now. And it's like that's definitely honoring right there.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. So, um, as far as the publishing of books, like, what did it do for your own personal self leadership journey?
Oh, well, learning about myself for one, learning more about myself. One of the major things is that each new level you face, there's going to be a new version of you that you're going to have to create, if not a new part of yourself you're going to have to tap into, because what got you to where you currently are isn't going to get you to where you want to go next. And with my first book going north, I had a deadline, and that was a dead end on procrastination. Second book, that one took longer than expected because shortly after my first book, my father passed away after his long
Oh
battle
man.
with Alzheimer's. And it was it was definitely a moment of grief, a long moment of grief because it was anticipatory grief for I'd say about at least probably about a year. And it really took its head in 2017 after he had a bad fall and cracked four of his ribs and had a collapsed lung. It took its toll then. And after that, just seeing him pass away after a few months after that darn fall and the body just really, really shutting down after that. It it really learned a new version of myself. Like, hey, like this is definitely something different. Like when it comes to there's certain things you can prepare for a lot, and you'll turn out okay. But at the same time, it's like you can prepare all day, but you're still gonna get that Mike Tyson punch in the face. You just can't. You're just gonna have to take it still. You're gonna be like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was gonna be. Like,
Yeah,
do I
I
still
agree
have
with
all
that.
my teeth? It's like,
I
dang,
definitely,
okay.
I definitely agree with that for sure, for sure. Um, so back to your podcast. What led you to start your podcast, and like, and in addition to that, how do you feel like it's evolved over time?
Oh yeah, so the voice itself, folks been telling me for years I got this great voice for radio. And I'm like, all right, let me go ahead and do something with it. And thought about starting a podcast after listening to a show from the early 2010s, the O Show, which was all about life and these hosts talking with professional wrestlers and sports athletes and just hearing life stories and just having a good time. And I'm like, wow, this is freaking great. Let me go ahead and see if I can do this for myself. And came 2014 when I really got into the professional development. I had that idea to start a podcast, but then after that obituary and then eventually writing my book, which was the side quest for me at the time when the podcast was the main quest. I'm like, wait a second. So I wrote this book. It's great. It's selling, but it's not selling enough. What can I do to take it to the next level? What else can I do to market the book? I'm like, oh wait, I can go ahead and start that podcast I've been wanting to start for years. And basically read a wonderful book by Derek Sivers called Anything You Want, and I highly recommend it. A nice, easygoing book where you could probably finish it in one sitting, probably finish it in like 90 minutes. It's a easy read. He's the founder of CD Baby, and his mission was to give a website and a platform for independent artists to sell their music via
Right.
CD
Okay.
and not have to worry about record labels.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait a second. If he could do that for musicians and succeed at it, shoot, I can do that for me and my podcast. I'll just interview authors around the globe and give them a platform to get their voices heard because that was something I needed to do when I first published my book. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And some days it still don't feel like don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing things and I'm moving forward with it. And it was a chance to really connect and really expand my network and my influence. Because the major thing is that when you start an interview based show, you get to build up your network of friends and wonderful folks that really can possibly help you out now or in the future. Where it's like, all right, cool. So I'm writing this book and I get a book endorsement. It's like, hey, I hear you looking for future guests. I got a podcaster who's looking for guests for their show. It's like it's just great opportunities on both ends. And it started off about authors. It's still about authors to this day. But I felt like after episode 200, probably like 200, close to maybe even 300, where it was like, all right, like this is good, but I feel like I can really be my full goofy self as a podcast host and help folks to bring out their goofiness too. And it's evolved to where now sometimes I'll just go ahead and ask all off the wall questions like, hey, if your book were a food, what would it be and why? And they'll just be taken aback, like, what the hell kind of question is that, man? And then they talk about it, and I was like, you know what? That's actually pretty creative. Yeah, yeah, it's sushi. It's freaking healthy for you. It's good for you. Yeah, omega oils. You love to see it. Yeah, buy a book, y'all. It's like just the evolution of just greater, deeper conversations still to this day, and 800 plus episodes later on the road to interviewing 1,000 different authors across the globe. About 150 more episodes away from reaching 1,000 for those. So it's been one heck of a journey. Oh, did your mic fall out, bro?
Sorry, I had muted it because they was cutting that grass. But yeah, that's great, man. I can only imagine reaching 800 episodes, man. That's crazy. So, how long did it take you? Like, how many years have you been doing the podcast?
Oh, it's been close to 7 years now. It started
Oh, okay.
September 2017. So yeah, it's been a while. It's been
Okay.
a while. I thought I was gonna do it once a week, but then it turned into 3 days a week, and it,
Yeah,
podcasting's one hell of a drug.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is, man. It is. So, I know this one isn't probably more so about what we were talking about, but how do you? So, as far as the podcasting, right? So, I've been doing it. I started my podcast back in 2021. But I did my first episode, and then I didn't do another episode for over a year, and I finally got back into it. Really, more so last year is kind of when I got back into it, and now I've been starting in 2024. I've been consistent, like always putting out something, always doing something. So how do you work to be able to monetize your podcast? I mean, I know they have different ways where your guests can donate to your show and things like that. But is there any other thing that you can look forward to be able to somewhat make a little bit of money out of it?
Yeah, definitely. Speaking engagements, that's one thing that can pop out from the podcast. I've been invited on a couple virtual summits to speak and made some revenue from that. Merchandise, got my own merchandise shop through tpublic.com, and also the books. Since I'm an author, folks buy the books too. Also audiobooks, voiceover work, been able to get some voiceover work as well. And it really just depends. Like the more you serve, eventually you're gonna get paid for your
Right.
service. It may not be Joe Rogan money. Like
Oh
not
no.
everybody's gonna get Joe Rogan money.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it'll be great to have, but then not everybody getting those non-figures. No.
Yeah. Everybody didn't have TV to back up to help get them to where they at either. So uh,
Exactly. That's the part people forget. It's like it ain't just a podcast, folks. Dude's a celebrity.
yeah, it's like you guys don't remember X Factor. You guys don't remember all that stuff back in the day. Come on, like everybody knew him from back in the day. So uh, But yeah, okay. So okay, so what are well actually how about this? We'll go this way. What advice would you give someone looking to start their own podcast?
Ah, yes. If you're looking to start your own podcast, first figure out why you want to start a podcast. And I wanted to start my podcast because I had a book to promote and businesses and services. Like, hey, I do keynote speaking, leadership, corporate training, coaching, things like that. And I'm like, all right, cool. This is a vehicle for me to do that. Like one of the major things is sometimes I can be a coin on this one. Sometimes looking back, folks be like, if you were to do it again, would you have a book first or podcast first? And sometimes be like, yeah, I wish I had a podcast first, so that way I can have a big, beautiful launch with a big book and sell it that way. But the other same time, it's like the book helped me to clarify my vision for what the podcast is going to be about.
Mhm.
So really just knowing your why and making sure you have something to promote. Like if you're a business owner, definitely look into podcasting, especially video podcasting. Like my man Alex has got his YouTube channel on his way to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. Like my man's over halfway there. Like it's gonna happen soon after this episode drops. It's definitely gonna be happening. Like my man's got goals. Like if you got something to promote, it's always good to have a podcast. Yeah, you can do it for hobbies, you can do it for fun, but I'd say know your why. Make sure you're about your business with it. Number two, if you want to start your own show, don't spend or take out a mortgage to buy equipment. Like this mic I'm using right now, like this thing's $60 and I've used it for years and it's never failed me. The only time when it failed me when I misplaced the original USB cord
uh,
for a few weeks during some moving and I had to get a replacement and sometimes the replacement cord would make the mic go out. Aside from that, my Blue Snowball microphone, $60. My gaming laptop, the Acer Nitro 5, that's about 900. And this was like back in 2020 where got some more money in. Like the Wi-Fi is a lot better on it. It's a gaming laptop. It's good for post-production.
mhm.
Like the equipment, Adobe Audition, that's like 24.99 a month.
Yep.
Like that's if you want to do the post production yourself. There's always Audacity, which is a free option. Like there's ways to really do what you want to do. Heck, even Tim Ferriss, to my knowledge, he still uses the Audio Technica 80, or should I say the 2100. And that mic was like a $50 mic back in like 2005. And that is a reliable microphone. Like you don't have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. It's like, yeah, there's folks out there who got a nice long bankroll and sure they got a higher production, but when you're starting out, don't try
Yeah.
to take out a second mortgage. And the third one is to definitely have fun once you get rolling, because the thing is that if you're not having fun, it's going to come across when you're doing it. Folks can feel your energy, even if you do an audio based podcast like myself. Like folks are going to be feeling your energy, and if you just sound like you're not having fun, it's like, oh god, this is like a 9 to 5 that's really like freaking 200 hours out of the week when there's only 168 hours in a week. It's like folks are gonna tell. Like BS
Yeah.
detectors are at an all-time high, like
I
high
agree.
right now. And
Yeah.
if you got some BS, folks are gonna sniff it out quickly.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Um, so tell me really quick how what was the inspiration behind Crappy to Happy? That's your best selling book. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, one of them. Yeah, so that's the bestseller. Stay the Course. The follow up was also a bestseller. Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. That was a multi-author anthology book. It was myself and 25 other authors sharing
Wow.
stories, different stories of how they had a crappy moment that eventually became happy. And some of the stories were pretty entertaining. Even one of the authors, she even told a funny story about how she thought she had a healing from bad eyesight when all that really happened is that she took a flight and she left her contacts s- to like the story me getting to a car accident and coming out on the other side and realizing I needed a desire for change. And heck, even some other stories about a parent having to hear the news of their child coming out as gay, and heck, even wanted to switch genders, like
Mhm.
coming like to those two generations switching off like that, and just going from a path of understanding, like, hey, this is what my child wants. Let's let's just love them anyway and see how they go with it and how they do with it. So like it's just really an anthology of stories,
Okay.
and just to really bring joy to folks, something entertaining, something inspiring. And it was a way to really have another book under my name, because if that's something folks want to do, is to write a book and they don't want to take on the heavy load of becoming an indie author and doing your own complete project, seek out someone who's doing an anthology book and join them and submit your story to them. Like most of them are anywhere between 500 to 3,000 words of a chapter. Like you can contribute 500 to 3,000 words. You get to connect with other authors, network with them. And
Mhm.
if they do a big launch party, that's even better. Like it's really all about getting your name out there and your feet wet and getting a taste of possibly what to expect when it comes to writing your book, and even when you want to gain clarity or even put out something in the meantime for folks to do a little nibbling on before the main course shows up. So if that's something folks want to do, if they want to have a book under their on their resume, seek to be a part of an anthologist. That way you can get your name out there more, have a book on your resume, and to meet more people. Because that's one of the main reasons why I decided to be a part of Crappy to Happy. It's like, hey, had a story to tell, wanted to get my name out there even more and use as a marketing technique.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Um, so what is there any uh before we wrap this up, so the last question I have for you is going to be, are there any strategies or different things that you would advise people on, what they can do to, overcome any challenges, like stay motivated and inspired, so that way they can, have that self leadership journey?
Sure thing. If you really want to have some transformation in your life, focus on helping other people. One of the best things that I did for myself is that I decided to have two index cards, two 4x6s. And now I decided to make it a journal called the Going North Advancement Compass, where you plan, act, and reflect on your day. And I would ask myself 5 questions. The first question would be, what good will I do today? Am I going to share a kind word with somebody, hold the door, even if they don't say thank you at first? Am I going to lend a let a friend borrow some money if I have the extra money to do so, and just write it off because I already know I ain't gonna get it back. Like it was,
Yeah.
I'll just see it as a gift to them, especially if they're unemployed for a moment. If they decide to gift me back later, whatever. I know my ultimate source isn't just the friends on earth; it's from a higher source. Like doing something good for somebody, heck, even something good for somebody you don't even know.
Mhm.
Asking yourself, what can I share? Can I share a kind word with somebody? Can I share some time with somebody, a listening ear? Like sharing something of yourself, whether it's your time, talent, or treasure. The third one is not only what good can I do, what must I do, but also what must I do? Is there one major thing I've been procrastinating on? Asking yourself, what must I do? Sometimes we procrastinate on things. Is there someone out there that I need to apologize to? Is there someone that I need to give grace to that may be looking for that chance? They've been putting out that olive branch, like a friend or a family member, like reaching out to them and apologizing to them, or heck, even giving them a chance to forgive you if if they've wronged you in the past and they're trying to change their life, something like that. Like making sure you can get that on your list. Heck, maybe even some paperwork for your business, getting that done. And the other two, when you come to the reflection of your day, asking yourself, what good did I do today? And that's basically focusing on your first question. If you wrote something down like, hey, a buddy needed a good $200. Like, all right, cool. All right. So I got him that day. He was able to get it through the cash app. It's good. Like I'm just gonna write that off. And he thanked me for it. Is like he's able to feed his family for the day. It's good. Like just going back over your day, see how it went. And to close it out is to ask yourself, what did I learn today? Focusing on what did you learn new? Was it a new fun fact about a colleague that you work with on your daily job? Was the new AI app that you can use? It's like, oh wow, it's like I thought it was all Chat GPT that was AI. It's like, oh, there's this Google Gemini that writes even clearer version of blog articles and podcast show descriptions and things like that, like just different tools, like writing down at least one thing that you learned about and doing that, where you plan out your day. And then when you plan out your day, you act to make your plans manifest and happen. And then at the end of the day, you reflect. And when you do those three things, you'll have some growth over time where it's like, all right, cool. I've done these things over a few weeks, if not a few months, and my mindset has begun to change for the better. So just asking yourself good questions, waiting for a good response, writing down that response. And if it's something that you can act on, make sure you take action on it, because sometimes we can be our own best resource when it comes to getting to our next level.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I agree with that. I mean, like we said, it all starts from within. You can get to where you want to be if you have that faith in yourself first before you expect anybody else to have that faith or confidence in you. So, but I think that's gonna wrap it up today as far as all the questions that I have for you. Which I mean, of course, I can come with plenty more, but I don't want to hold you too long. Of course, we got other guests coming on as well, and I know you got things that you have to do upon your day, and you got other people's lives to affect in a positive way as well. So I won't hold you, but I definitely appreciate you taking out your time to come and have this chat with me, and talk to my audience for them to learn a thing or two of how to do how to better improve their self healing, self thinking, and so on and so forth. I definitely appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you for happy old man. That means something's working.
Yes, sir. It definitely is. All the work that you're doing is definitely amazing. It's great. I just want to tell you, from me, I appreciate it, because it's going to help out a lot of people, and just whatever you're doing, don't stop.
Woo! Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah.
That's right, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So everyone, appreciate you guys tuning in. Y'all just watched another episode of All in All with Alex with my guy Dom. Peace.